Can we cross that off to say person?
I know. I was hoping Andre would be here, but that's 200 years old.
I gathered that, so.
So yeah, I'm handling now the director of HR, and on suggestion, we wanted to put a lunch and learn together about just some basic stuff about interviewing tips, kind of some of the process that we do here. And so this is kind of, it's pretty basic for some of you guys, may think I already know this, but it's also in answering a lot of the questions that came when we put up this lunch and learn. What do you want to learn from this? So we try to fit that into this as well. So some people may be getting some information that they're looking for out of this. No duty the executive had to perform was so trying as to put the right man or person in the right place. This is a letter from Thomas Jefferson to John Adams way back in 1823. So we're doomed from the start, right? They've been trying to do this for 200 years. As we would say, trying to put the right person in the right seat in the bus. And some of it kind of is going to be kind of your gut feeling at the end of the whole thing, but the more prepared you are and the more invested you are in the interview process, I think the better chance that you can trust your gut at the end of the day. You're going to figure out what the qualifications are and how they might be able to perform the job, but in terms of picking the right person, it comes down sometimes to judgment call. Goals of an interview. Of course, you want to assess the candidate. Is it a good fit between the candidate's capabilities, their skill level, and the job requirements? So how well they perform in the job, given their background and what they've done. Describe the agency job and working conditions. It's always good to give an idea. They've probably gone to the website if they've done their homework, but to give an idea of who we are, what the job really entails. Sometimes people say, they describe the job and say, have I scared you away yet? Because they give the real picture of what the job's going to be. And working conditions, the hours, that kind of thing, that there may be some on call. It's not always going to be between 8 and 5. Those kinds of things are good to make sure that they're aware of. Creating a positive experience and goodwill for the agency, whether or not they're hired. If they don't get the job, either way, they've gone through an interview, they're going to talk about their interview after the case, or after it's done. And they're going to talk to their colleagues and friends. And if it's a poor experience, they're going to talk about that, and that's going to affect our reputation. Positive assessment of the character and personality of the individual. That gets a little bit tougher, but again, you use your gut and best judgment. You're going to have your boxes of how they might be able to do this job, and even if all those boxes are not checked, you got to ask yourself, can we coach and mentor them in those areas where they're weak or they don't have the experience? Is this such a good candidate that we want to keep them and put some of our energy into making them a good employee? And is there another position with the agency where they might be a potential better fit? If you feel that it's not going to work for your job, but you really like this candidate, they've got a lot of good things going for them, let us know, let HR know, we'll know what the other openings are. And we can have that information too. When we decline the candidate, we can tell them that it was a positive experience and we don't have anything open right now, but keep us in mind and we'll keep you in mind. Because we might be able to keep a good person that just wasn't the best fit for that particular role.
Dan?
Yeah.
Can you go back to the create a positive experience and goodwill for the agency? Like, what are some things that happen? No, you don't have to move the slide, but just that third bullet point. What are some things that create maybe a less than positive experience that you've seen happen, and then some that create a positive experience?
Sure. And we'll get a little bit into that too, I think, in some of the material, but if you can tell, they can tell by your body language that you're just not interested in, sometimes we make up our opinion in the first 5 minutes, and you're not taking notes, or you're rolling your eyes, or you're looking at your watch, you rush through the interview. We're going to talk about having a set of questions that you're going to ask each candidate. That'll prohibit you really from rushing through the interview because you have to ask each and every question of each candidate. But sometimes, and we've been all over the map with that, sometimes we've said, we're not going to hire this person, and it's on a set, do some interviews with me, and I turned what would have been a 10-minute interview into about 35 minutes just because I felt that they needed to feel the interview process. Again, not go away with a bad taste in their mouth, because they're going to know if it's a 15-minute interview that we just weren't interested in them at all. It's not going to be a very good experience for them. Does that kind of answer your question?
That does, that's helpful.
And lack of being prepared to.
Yep. Yep.
That's a biggie.
Yeah.
You, the interviewer, you're all in the social work field, so you have good interpersonal skills, but making them feel comfortable, making it more of a conversation, getting to know them, and getting them to talk about themselves as much as possible. Being prepared, as you said, doing your homework and being ready for it. Being objective. You may already have some biases in the back of your mind, what your likes and dislikes are, and you kind of have to push those aside and look at this with an objective lens. And good record keeping for like interview notes, stuff like that. If you want to make sure that they're professional, if they were ever subpoenaed for some reason, that you have a good record of and documentation of the interview itself. Let me know if I kind of go past this, so let me know if I need to slow down. Again, be prepared, go into more detail, know what you're looking for. By that, you could review and update the job description. When somebody asks for it to be posted, we're going to ask you to look at that job description. And in doing so, you're going to look it through, it'll review for you and say, oh yeah, I forgot about J here, that that's even one of their duties, and kind of reminds you of what the job is all about, and do you need to update that, refresh that job description. So you know what you're looking for in terms of what they're going to be doing per the job description. Learn as much as you can about the applicant. You know, I've been guilty of it too, but you're all busy people, and you know, don't say, oh crap, I got an interview in 10 minutes, print the resume and rush to the interview room and start looking at the resume. You know, study that resume, look it over carefully before you go in there so you get to know as much as you can about that person. If you have questions about a particular job they may have held, if there's any gaps in there, you could ask, I see between 2016 and 18, there's nothing here. Can you fill us in on, you know, what's going on there? And you just prepared for the interview. Job jumping, if they're jumping all over the place, you might want to ask about that. There's a lot of that, and you don't want to bring them in, but if there's good reason to bring them in, you might want to ask. And then preparing your list of questions. And you could do that as a group process as well. And come up with what are the questions, key questions that we need to find out about this person. Creating a comfortable and warm environment, you know, offer them coffee, water, tea. Introduce yourself if it's a group interview, you know, like we just did here. Go around and introduce yourself and what you do here so they get to know you. Maybe there's some chit chat you found from the resume. Maybe they put some hobbies down there or something while you're walking them to the room. You can just have some chit chat about the weather or whatever the case may be, just to get them to feel comfortable and kind of lessen their nerves, because 95% of them are going to be nervous when they get into this environment. And describe the process and the time frames. You know, let them know what's going to happen. It's a 2-interview process. We're wrapping up first interviews early next week. Then we hope to have 2 or 3 people to bring back for a second interview. That'll happen the week after that. And then if there's somebody there that we feel is a good fit for the job, we'll make the offer. And that'll go pretty quickly. We'll screen at the same time, which may take a few days. But we're looking 2 or 3 weeks out, so they know exactly what they're getting into. And of course, we'll let you know and let all candidates know if they did not get the job. We'll get a phone call or email them and let you know that you did not get it. Notes, keep them professional, because they could be subpoenaed, so don't put down there something you think is funny, because that could come back to bite you. It shows that you're taking interest in the candidate. You know, if you're just sitting there and staring at them the whole time, they may feel that you're not really that invested, involved in the process. But if you're jotting down some notes, yes, sir.
How long should we keep interviewing it?
The rule of thumb is a year, same with the application.
Okay.
Yeah, if you're running out of space and you want us to put that with your application, you can send it to HR. And then the other good thing about taking notes is to refresh your memory. When you get back, a lot of times people want to debrief all the candidates at the end of the process. And I'm going to forget who said what sometimes, so you have those notes that you can refer back to how the interview went. Avoid writing anything that could land in a personnel file. That's not so relevant today, but in the old days, we would have just, I would do interviews, and if I wrote something on the application or the resume that's going to go in the personnel file, then that's a permanent record that could be brought out. So we want to keep those clean. Use our name once in a while. I think it's welcoming and comforting to, you know, say, Bill, tell me about blah, blah, blah. You know, every once in a while just interject their first name, because they're a person, they're just not a piece of paper that you called in to see for our needs, who we want to hire. Same questions for all candidates. That's really important, and I think we've been all over the map, so this is good to refresh people. develop that list of questions that are performance-driven questions, and then ask those of each and every candidate. Even it could be painstaking, like I said, that you know you're not going to hire this person. You don't have to go down and use follow-up questions, because those are perfectly fine. You ask a question, you need more information. But if somebody you know you're not going to hire, you can just go through the list and ask the questions and probably get through it pretty quickly. But it is important for equity and fairness to ask each and every candidate the same question. Writing or skills testing, you have to do that for everybody as well if you decide to do that. I know finance has some skill testing because they have to have a certain skill level for those jobs. A lot of programs like to do written scenarios and just make sure that those are done equally for everybody. So it's not just pick and choose. I know you guys know that.
Oh, I have a couple questions on that screen. Sorry, can you go back one? The be prepared section, I'm assuming you might talk about it, but can, what are the rules about using social media to get to know my client or my candidate?
I know people do that. I'm not a huge fan of it myself. I know a lot of folks do that just because it could cloud your judgment. I mean, there's a picture of spring break on there from 5 years ago, and does that already bias you against this person?
So there's no like rule about it? It is?
I think from an equity perspective, it's really discouraged because there's a lot of cultural differences in the ways in which people use social media. Yeah, so for that perspective, it's really discouraged.
I mean, I agree with you on all that, but what about like their LinkedIn page, which is supposed to be their professional page?
I mean, some people apply through LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So-
Right.
So,
Yep.
yeah. I
And
mean,
that
I'd
is
say if
the
it's a
one I
job
use
board
the-
type of website, I think that's probably different than your personal
Yes,
Facebook page.
I highly agree.
So Facebook, not so much. LinkedIn, yes. Okay.
And then the same questions for all the candidates, I'm assuming that's per department.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'd like you to send them our way just so we can check them over. We'll talk about legal and illegal questions in a minute, but.
I don't interview because I'm a horrible interviewer. That's one of the reasons why I'm here. So it's been a while since I've had to sit in on one and know what the same questions were, so. I do like everybody, that's my problem. That whole thing about working with them on the few things that might not be, that's always me, like, oh yeah, we can work with that. Mary Jo is always like, no. Anyway, okay, just checking.
All right. We're going to do group interviews, and we're doing more and more of those. Make sure the candidate knows what they're walking into. Set up we'll do that when we set up the appointment too, but that, you know, there's 5 people back there, so I just want to give you a heads up. It's going to be a little intimidating, but they're all really nice people. Have a plan in place. Is there a lead person? We just had an interview where we came up with our questions and we divvied them up by person. So we knew exactly what we were going to do. When my name came up, I asked that question. And it was real prepared and went really well. Okay, to share a little bit about yourself. That again makes it more of a conversation and eases their stress. Sometimes, sometimes there's questions about what stresses you out, etc. And if they hem and haw, sometimes I'll say, for me, it's aggressive drivers. Aggressive drivers drive me crazy, and it just kind of shows a little bit about myself and opens it up for them to be a little bit more relaxed.
He's been sharing that for 6 years at least.
It is true. You guys are tailgaters.
You're in a room full of people that could probably help you with that.
Yeah. After we're done, then it's teamwork ability and comfort level. And by that, I don't mean fit your team, because you got to be careful if you want everybody to be perfect, the same as you and your team, because there's a lack of diversity there, lack of diversity of thought even. But can they work with a team? Are they a team player as opposed to I'm just going to do my own thing? Kind of keep an eye on that.
As well as
Assess for people.
personality, right?
Hmm?
And personality,
Yep.
right?
Yep, like soft skills too, is how they interact with people. It's easy to find out what their hard skills are, but how they are as a person, how they interact. There's some questions you could probably throw in there to get an idea of their personality. If they're real stiff the whole time, that might tell you something. If they laugh and they're more relaxed, that might tell you something else. Allow for nervousness and stress level. They are going to be nervous. I remember interviewing a person who was very nervous in the interview, and he even said so a couple times, I'm so nervous, and I don't think that was a good answer, you might know what I'm talking about.
Uh-huh.
But there was just something about that person that thought that they would be a really good employee, and so we kind of tried to relax her and, asked her different kinds of questions, and that person turned out to be an awesome employee. But if I just looked at the initial interview, which was kind of a train wreck, she never would have been hired, so just try to help her relax and ask different kinds of questions to get it down. Be a good listener sounds kind of simple, but everything that I've read said the interviewer should talk about 15 to 30% of the time. They should be talking at least 70% of the time. So ask the questions and sit back and let them listen. And if they need a follow-up question to get more information, that's fine. But be careful how much you talk. They're not here to hear you necessarily. Know your needs. You're hiring to solve a critical need, not to fill a slot in the org chart, right? So we're under pressure to get warm bodies sometimes, but we really want to fill that need and not fill that position. Credentials, qualifications, experience are all very important, but again, we need to hire the right person. I remember reading somewhere, don't hire a sales director, hire someone who can sell. So they got the title, they've been doing it forever, that may not mean a whole lot, but if they can sell, if they're passionate about it, that's a different thing. More tips. Again, we talked about being conversation, less of an examination. The comfort level and follow-up questions will help with that. Bringing out a shy or nervous candidate. You could compliment their accomplishments. If they have some stuff that they accomplished on their resume, that's a nice way to draw them out and make them feel comfortable. Hobbies, interests. Use humor sometimes. I never do that. Right? But sometimes it's helpful to relax a candidate. What they might be proud of with their career. And you could go off script with smooth candidates. Sometimes I've heard people say that I hired this person, they were a great interview, and they turned out to be a lousy employee. Because they had all these canned answers, they knew what you were looking for. So you can go off script a little bit and ask follow-up questions like, tell me more. That gets them away from that canned answer. They have to go into more detail. Or ask the why or how questions about their canned answer to get past what they've already prepared and worked with their spouse all night long. Again, go beyond the checklist. You can use your gut in the end. Your gut's not always right, but the more, again, invested you are in this process, the closer it'll be to correct. And watch and prepare for unintended bias or preconceived notions. If Andre was here, I'd throw the ball to him because that's part of his job. He's already helped us a lot. The things that we did that we didn't even realize were maybe doing some bias type stuff, like not asking everybody the same question or not asking a lot of personal questions to get at who they are, but preconceive of what we like and dislike in that person. And be careful again with fitting the team culture. We don't want all like people on the same team. We want diversity of thought, diversity of people. People can adapt. Another one would be some people say, well, I'm nervous about this candidate because they're obviously overqualified. So that's kind of a preconceived notion that they're not going to do well in your job. But there may be really good reasons why they're applying for this job. Maybe they've had it with the corporate world and they just want to work with people again. So they may be really good, may be disqualifying a really good candidate by saying they're overqualified. Or you want a male or 70% female in this industry, and maybe you're looking for a male, but you might exclude a lot of good candidates if you do that. There may be a good reason for it, but just to keep an open mind, be objective. Your thoughts on tattoos and piercings and that kind of stuff, that might sway your opinion of who to hire. And cultural differences, there's a lot of cultural differences that we may not even be aware of, but just to keep very objective, and Andre, sitting right there, is going to help us with some of that stuff.
Can I just add one of the things that
Please do.
He just kind of challenged me on was, I have always looked at the first round interview as I want to get to know this person. I want to see if they have the qualifications, but I really want to kind of get to know them too. And his framework for that is none of that should happen in the first round interview. From an equity standpoint, it should be completely performance-based questions. So not the questions about what stresses you or what do you do in your free time or some of the other really good questions that we have, but completely performance-based and completely based on how they have handled certain things, like explain a time to me when you had a challenging employee and how you handled that kind of